name is Jeanette, and I want to thank you for joining me on the channel Jane Reads. So today I'm going to talk about all the books I read in the second half of December. I've already done a mid-month wrap-up for the books I read in the first half of December, so that will be linked in the description box of that video. Overall, I had an amazing December. I did not expect to get as many books read as I did. Because, December's a busy month, and I was also posting a lot more videos than I normally do, and I had to edit those videos to get them ready to go up, which cut into my reading time. So I thought there's no way I'm gonna read as many as I normally read. And I was starting to worry about getting my TBR done because of that. However, December was my best month of the year. I read a total of 15 books, and then it got me thinking, did I read a lot of short books or what? But actually, I read 4,668 pages, which is actually more pages than my next best month, which was August at 4,400 books, or 4,400 pages with 14 books. So yeah, I was really impressed. So other than it being a good reading month that way, I also had 3 5-stars over the month. I will talk about 2 of them in this video, and one of them I've already talked about because I read it near the beginning of December. Okay, so let's get into what I actually read and my thoughts. So the first book I finished was Downfall by Terri Blackstock. This is book number 3 in the Intervention series, and we continue following the Covington family who we've met in book 1. I don't really want to tell you much about this book because, again, as I said, it is book 3, and it picks up with the same characters that we have been following the whole series through. Just know that their lives are looking up, but they still get involved in some stuff that kind of what's going to happen next. And I devoured this book. I read it in 24 hours. I did not want to put it down. I was so hooked. I gave it 4.5 stars only because there were some things I think could have been developed a little bit more than what they were, but I really enjoyed my time with this book. Okay, then I listened to the audiobook of A Brilliant Night of Stars and Ice by Rebecca Connolly. This is a fictional retelling of the response to the Titanic's SOS signal by the captain of the ship Carpathia. That sounded like a mouthful there. Okay, so the book is told in 2 point of views. A male perspective, which is the captain of the Carpathia, Arthur, and then a female narrator for the passenger of the Titanic named Kate. And at the end of every single chapter, there are journal entries shared, or journal entries or newspaper articles or stuff from passengers of the Carpathia or reporters from reporting the event after the fact. And it was so interesting. I knew a lot about I felt like I knew a lot about the Titanic because, heard about it for years. I saw the Titanic movie back when it first came out. And I thought I knew a lot about it. But I did not know the Carpathia's story. And the author note at the end is really what made this book for me, because it kind of details the research that she did to make sure that this story was as true to fact as it could be. She admits where she, embellished a bit, added character names to that people weren't named, but it is so real, or as much as real life as she could make it. And I was hooked. I was so invested in this. And the captain of the Carpathia that responds to the SOS call from the Titanic, I just loved him. I loved the way he came across. He was caring for his crew and depending on others and not taking all the credit when he was being given credit. He made sure that his crew and the passengers on the ship were also receiving acknowledgement for what they did. I loved him. And then following from Kate's perspective, the passenger on the Titanic, the way she was feeling, what she went through, it was just heartbreaking. And I do not like water. I do not like being cold. So, put the two things together. I did not want to be in Kate's shoes. And I was so hooked. And I mean, obviously, we know that she survives because this book is being told from her story, from her perspective. And what's going to happen next? Like, I was hooked and invested. This was so well done. I'm just looking at my notes to see what else. That's about it. I was captivated through, and I love following this. And I feel like I learned so much more than I really knew before I started this book. Okay, then we've got a series to talk about. So I binged this series. So the series is Capital Intrigue by Rachel Dillon. Book 1 is Endgame, Book 2 is Backlash, and Book 3 is Power Play. So in Book 1, the very opening scene, we meet 3 best friends who went to college together, and now they all work for the government in Washington, D.C., and they went to law school in Georgetown. And one of them is a practicing lawyer for the State Department. One of them has taken kind of doing something different. And the third one is an FBI agent. And so we meet the 3 girls, the 3 women, and then one gets called away to a case. So in Book 1, we are following Bailey, who is the FBI agent, and a murder has happened. She gets called in. Second murder happens, and so she ends up having to team up with NCIS agent Marco to investigate them and figure out what's going on. So we're mainly following Bailey, but then there is also perspectives from a fellow NCIS agent who works with Marco named Izzy, who is a relatively new agent. And then there is a JAG lawyer, Lexi. And so those 3 female characters are really the ones we follow throughout the course of this book. And it really jumped between the different point of views and more than just the one case that we're following. A lot of times there was way too much going on, way too many initial agencies that I was like, wait, he's with them, they're with, how are they, why, what? Like, it was so much to follow at times. And there was one of the 3 ladies that I wanted to spend more time with and get to know more of her story. But she was not Bailey, not the main character. Now we do see the other 2 best friends that we meet at the very beginning a little bit, but not a lot at all. And then Book 2 picks up with one of those 3 friends, so not Bailey, one of the other ones. And again, the exact same thing. There were so many agencies involved. We're not with the FBI, we're not with NCIS, so it's different from this one because she works for a different department. And there was just so much. And again, there are 2 or maybe even 3. There were 3 separate stories that we were following in this one. And one of the other stories does pick up from one of the characters we met in this book. So those 2 characters follow over. But then the third character that we met in this book she's mentioned in this book, but that's it. And I'm like, I've just gotten to know these people. And now you want me to know all these new people? Yeah. And in this book, again, it wasn't the main storyline that I was invested in. It was a secondary storyline. Then Book 3 follows the third friend that we initially met in Book 1. And again, there's a couple storylines. There's only 2 storylines being told in this book that don't really seem to connect. Now, they do connect at the very end, and you know why they're both told. But it just was too many agencies. Like, can we get every alphabet agency involved in these 3 books? Because that's really what it felt like. And now, I mean, they are in Washington, D.C., so obviously a lot of the headquarters for all the agencies are there. But it was so overwhelming at times. And we see a little bit of the characters from these books in this one, but not really. I felt like I was meeting brand new characters again. And when we're following a series, I don't want completely new characters in every single book. I want characters to carry over. Okay, so as you can tell, this really was not a favorite series of mine. The books 1 and book 3, I gave 3 stars, and book 2, I gave 4 stars because I was really invested in the secondary storyline. And if my favorite character from this book had carried over in this book, I probably would have enjoyed these ones a little bit more, but they kind of, their mission, but they really don't really have a role. Okay, but I do have a quote to share from this one. And that is, God is there, even when we think we can't feel him or hear him. So there is definite faith talk in all 3 books, but I noticed it the most in this one. So I will say, reading these books felt like watching an episode of NCIS, especially book 1, because NCIS is involved in book 1. But when they partner up with the FBI, when they partner up with CIA, when they partner up, right? Like it was like watching those type of TV shows. So if you enjoy those type of TV shows, which I do, but I think I also give me a certain character and let them be the main character. And I'm not always a fan of the main character. It's usually a secondary character that I end up liking the most, but yeah, so that was my experience with this series. Walking on Hidden Rings by Rachel Scott McDaniel. I have done a vlog on this book and the next book as well, and I loved this book. I loved it. It is historical fiction set in the 1920s in New York State. We are following Geneva, who was recently married through an arranged marriage, and she lost her husband, and she has gone undercover now to try to figure out what happened, like who murdered him or who is responsible for his death. And then while she's undercover, something happens, and I was like, wait, what? And then there are flashbacks, so they're not flashbacks. The story jumps back in time to like 5 months earlier. So then we get to know, or we get to experience Geneva and her husband meeting, going through the arranged marriage, getting to know each other. And I just really enjoyed that. It was so nice to see the relationship develop that way and know why Geneva was now searching for answers. So about every other chapter flips from like present day 1920 something to back 5 months earlier, and I was so hooked. And every chapter does end on like a little bit of a cliffhanger, like what's gonna happen next, like some piece of trivia is dropped or they're left with some question, and I was like, I have to keep reading to find out what's gonna happen next. Like I was so hooked to this book. I absolutely loved it. Okay, then the other one that is in that vlog is The Warsaw Sisters by Amanda Barratt. And this one, it is World War II in Poland. We are following 2 sisters. So it opens in 1939. They've just sent their father off to war, and now they're trying to make their own way, like trying to survive in war-torn Poland. And something happens, and they end up going off on their own, like separate from each other, and they don't really talk between it. The story is told from both sisters' point of view, so we spend periods of time with one sister before we switch over to the other sister and spend an extended amount of time with them, and then it switches back. What I found hard about this book is it is such a heavy read and dense. And I mean, we're in Poland and Warsaw at the time World War II is happening. They're living through air raids, being bombed. Their Jews are being placed into an encampment area, and just the horrific scenes on the streets, what they see, what they experience. Like, it was very descriptive. And then there were some times when I'm reading, I'm like, I don't know what that word is. So then I had to stop and look it up, or just kind of really reread to try to figure out what was going on or to understand it. It's such a powerful story to be told, for sure, because it's horrible what happened. Like, it is horrible, but I did not need the detail as much as it was detailed. Because it's very gruesome at times. Yeah, like, I wasn't getting sick while as I was reading it, like thinking about what you're seeing, but just as it's being described what they're seeing, like corpses in the street and stuff, it was like, okay, yeah. And I didn't find there was a lot of faith in the story, which I kind of expected there to be. I just really thought there would be. So it was interesting. I was invested. I wanted to know. There was one sister that I really enjoyed getting to know more than others, more than the other one. However, there was also one point in this story that it was, I feel like I've read this before. Like, there was a certain scene that happened. There's just like, and then I do know what book that is from. But I mean, there's only so much thing, right? Like, that's going to happen at times, not on purpose. So I don't fault it for that at all. But I struggled. I struggled because I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I was going to enjoy it. But I think that's also because it was such a heavy topic, and it's hard to enjoy a really heavy topic. So I'm going to give this book 3.5 stars. I think it could have been shorter than what it was. It encompasses basically 5 years, maybe 5.5 years time. And I just realized I didn't share the quote from this book that I wanted to share with you. Okay, so the quote I have for this book is, "Love gives, not takes. It never forces another person to sacrifice, but sacrifices itself for the other person." Oh, I just loved it. Okay, and then the very last book I'm going to talk about is An Unexpected Kiss by Cindy Roland Anderson. So I listened to this one on audio because I needed an audiobook. And it was leaving Audible at the end of the year, and it was only 4 hours, I think. It is a novella. I have read it on my Kindle before, so I thought, well, let's just listen to it, because I was waiting for my next audiobook to come in from the library, so I had nothing in between. So it was basically a time killer in a way, but also really fun. This is book 1 of the Snow Valley Romance series, and we meet Lucy Phillips, who is coming home from California to Montana, to the town of Snow Valley for Christmas. Her mother is trying to hook her up with her ex-boyfriend, so has arranged for her ex, Lance, to pick her up at the airport. Lucy doesn't want to get together with her high school boyfriend, and to try to turn him off, she pretends that she arrived with the boyfriend and kisses an unexpected guy in the airport, hoping that this is the one and only time she'll see him. Well, that's not the case. He turns out to be moving to Snow Valley, and through events that happen, she runs into him again, and it's like, ooh. So this is a Christmas-focused book. When they run into each other again, so Cole is the guy. So when Lucy and Cole reconnect, run into each other again, then Lucy makes it her mission to teach Cole the Christmas spirit. And they go on a Polar Express ride and talk about the Polar Express movie and book, and all the little things about decorating for Christmas, playing Secret Santa. Very Christmas heavy book, but it's so fun. Not realistic at all in some ways, but it is fun. And it has a really good ending, and it's just sweet. I gave it 4 stars because it was just an enjoyable Christmas read. So those are all the books I read in the second half of December. And if you haven't guessed already, this is my favorite book of the month. I loved this book so much that I want to read more by this author. This is Rachel Scott McDaniel. I looked it up, and she does have quite a few other books, and she actually has a new book coming out in February that I might need to keep an eye out for, because when I was reading the description, there's a character in that book who made appearances in this book. So does that mean Geneva will make appearances in that book? I don't know. So yeah, I really want to read more. Thank you, Christine, for picking this one, because this one was not on my radar at all. So that is everything that I read in the month of December. I'd love to know what your favorite book of December was, and let's just chat in the comments. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video today, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.